Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to chapter 2 of Capitalist Realism, which is titled, What If You Held a Protest and Everyone Came? In which Mark Fisher addresses the question, what if you did a protest and everyone came? Also our guest star here is the beautiful Maria Moore. As we've seen from the first chapter, everything that's against capitalism, everything counter-capitalist gets absorbed into capitalism. And there's a second need that capitalist realism has for anti-capitalist material, and that's to pacify. We've all seen movies, TV shows, with the evil corporation as the bad guy, the villain. We're all familiar with that, and that it does the thinking for us. He says, time after time, the villain in Hollywood films will turn out to be the evil corporation. Far from undermining capitalist realism, this gestural anti-capitalism actually reinforces it. He uses WALL-E, the Pixar movie, as an example for that, where we haven't been really conquered, taken over by capitalism as much as just succumb to it. So he uses a term that Robert Fowler has called inner passivity, in which he says, the film performs our anti-capitalism for us, allowing us to consume with impunity. So this acknowledgement of, yes, alright, the evil corporations are out there, or they're evil corporations, that allows us just to continue without any second thought. And he says it distances us, it creates a sense of like irony or skepticism in us, and when we have that irony or that skepticism, we're removed from it, we're distanced from it, and because we're distanced from it, we can objectify it, like money, for instance, is what he uses here. We can, what he calls fetishizing, which is turning into an object. We can fetishize money because of our distance here. And I think you can look at how many products are intended to be ironic, right? You can buy stuff, sell stuff, it's the attitude, the irony, and all that, and yet, you know, people consume movies, people consume music, products, television shows, all in the name of irony, because they have this distance. And he looks at other forms like Stalinism that relies on propaganda to sort of convert people, to pull people into this ideology. And he says capitalism, we seem to be post-ideological, we seem to be without ideology, right? Because of our cynicism and so forth. We don't really believe anything. Capitalism still exists on an ideology. It still has very many ideologies that it relies on. Only instead of pulling us into it through propaganda, it distances us from those ideologies. And because of that distance, we're able to actually partake in it. He's quoting Zizek here when he says, cynical distance is just one way to blind ourselves from the structural power of ideological fantasy. Even if we do not take things seriously, even if we keep an ironical distance, we are still doing them. This whole chapter is a little more abstract, but I think this is something that we can all feel. At least I know that I've felt this before. I know that I've, consumed in irony. I've even seen like a video some famous YouTuber made about how you start to do things because it's ironic, but then it becomes a part of your habits. It becomes a part of you, and then you have to wonder if you're doing them because they're ironic, or if you're just doing them because now that's part of your character. So long as we believe in our hearts that capitalism is bad, we are free to continue to participate in capital exchange. Moreover, this behavior precisely depends upon the prior disavowal. We are able to fetishize money in our actions only because we have already taken an ironic distance towards money in our heads. Now he moves into protests, and here he describes protests. Protests have formed a kind of carnivalesque background noise to capitalist realism, and anti-capitalist protests share rather too much with hyper-corporate events like 2005's Live 8, with their exorbitant demands that politicians legislate away poverty. So here the protests, he calls them carnivalesque, so they're more of a carnival than actually anything that can accomplish something. He looks at the fact that they come in to a protest supposing what we call the man, right? We like to stick it to the man. And he describes that as protest impulse of the 60s posited a malevolent father, the hairbringer of a reality principle that supposedly cruelly and arbitrarily denies the right to total enjoyment. So, who we're protesting against? We have this image in our head when we go into there that we're against the evil corporation, or this evil father with all the resources. And protests rely on this kind of image to have. And then he says, yet it is not capitalism, but protest itself, which depends on this figuration of the father. And one of the success of the current global elite has been their avoidance of identification with the figure of the hoarding father. So the man, capitalism doesn't need the man, right? The man isn't up here in control, somehow pulling strings like a puppet master. That's just the image that we have when we go to protest. And what this image does, it's really nice for corporations because they can distance themselves from it. So you have, I don't know, Taco Bell, which has their really clever Twitter, and they respond to everybody, and well, Taco Bell can't be evil, right? They're not the man because they're interacting with people, right? Or you have corporations that get in with charities, and well, okay, they can't be the man, they can't be bad because when I buy their product, they give money to charity. Whether it's marketing, whether it's the customer service, whatever it is, these corporations are able to distance themselves because we have this image in our head, right? This sort of fantasy of the hoarding father. The corporations can separate themselves from it, even though they are the ones that are creating all of this, all the turbulence and all the issues going on. So now he looks at what exactly is it then? What is this evil that we are trying to find? And he says that to reclaim real political agency, to get what we want done on a political level, social and political level, means first of all accepting our insertion at the level of desire and the remorseless meat grinder of capital. So the first thing we have to do is accept that this evil capitalism is inserted in us at our level of desire and our values and our beliefs and the things that we think is there. Capitalism is a hyper-abstract, impersonal structure, and that it would be nothing without a cooperation. So it's hyper-abstract, right? It's not there's no really form that you can point to. There's no object, there's no person. It's impersonal, impersonal structure. So there's no person, group of people, no company, group of companies, corporation. There's nothing really tangible we can point to and say, this is what's caused capitalism, creating capitalism, or this is the evil of capitalism. Because we are creating it, we're partaking in it, every single one of us. This creates what he calls ideological blackmail, in where it's up to the individual to solve these problems. He says, with ideological blackmail, has insisted that caring individuals could end famine directly without the need of any kind of political solution or systemic organization. The fantasy being that Western consumerism, far from being intrinsically implicated in systemic global inequality, could itself solve them. All we have to do is buy the right products. Now, instead of, hey, let's reorganize our social structure, it's no, okay, now the individual, let's donate money, let's buy stuff. These protests, or these philanthropic missions, are assuming capitalism as the only structure. And instead of looking at how we could reorganize that and solve that, they are using it, right? So you buy the right product, and then a percentage of your proceeds go to wherever, and it's using capitalism, which created these problems. Again, when I talk about critiques on the internet, I see a lot of blaming people, and it would be easy for me, right? And generally people who are blamed are like rich people, white people, males, religious people, straight people, right? You have these sort of villains, which I'm like 4 or 5 of those. So it'd be really easy for me to attach to that and be like, yeah, see, like, it's not really my fault, which is why I would hold that with a grain of salt, because I'm not looking for a cop-out. But I think it does make a lot of sense that obviously pointing to trying to find a tangible form of the evil is not doing us any good. Because it is abstract, it is impersonal, and it is, everybody is partaking into it. So I'd be very interested to know what you guys think about this. Well, that's it for today, and I will see you guys next week. Take it easy.